Today, we will talk about arithmetic sequence. Now, here, the main idea is that if we've been given a sequence, we can label that sequence as an arithmetic sequence if it has either an addition or subtraction pattern. So we saw geometric sequences where the pattern needed to be multiplication or division. But now, if we see that the pattern is either addition or subtraction, then we're going to label that as an arithmetic sequence. So the main idea for today is that an arithmetic sequence is a sequence that has an addition or subtraction pattern. So let's see some examples. Now here, all we're doing in this following example is just identify if it's arithmetic or not. So now let's see. Here, look at the sequence 2, 4, 6, 8. What are we doing to get to the next number? Well, it seems that to go from 2 to 4, I needed to add 2. It seems like in order for us to get to the next number, we're always going to be adding 2. So here, remember that if we're going to talk about arithmetic, the pattern needs to be either of addition or subtraction. So notice that here, there was a pattern, and this pattern was of addition. So this says that this is an arithmetic sequence. So knowing that it's an arithmetic sequence, it needs to have a common difference. The common difference is the number that we keep adding, which in this case, it's just 2. It is an arithmetic sequence because there was an addition pattern, and the pattern is what we're going to call a common difference. So now let's look at example 2. Let's leave example 3 for later. Let's concentrate on 2 now. So here we have example 2. Let's see. Try to identify if there's some kind of addition pattern or subtraction. So it seems like to go from 5 to 10, I needed to add 5. So that's good. From 10 to 15, I add 5 as well. 15 to 20, I add 5, not 2. I add 5. So notice that here we have an addition pattern again. Because it's an addition pattern, then we can label this as arithmetic. And the common difference is just 5 because that's the number that we keep adding. So now let's see example 3 now. Let's see, can you identify some kind of addition or subtraction pattern? Well, let's see. To go from 20 to 15, it seems like I need to subtract 5. To go from 15 to 10, it seems I need to subtract 5. 10 to 5, subtract 5 as well. So here we have a subtraction pattern. So this means that this is still arithmetic because in order for it to be arithmetic, you need to add or subtract by the same number. So this is still arithmetic. And now the common difference is going to be not 5, but -5. So here we have to pay attention to the sign. If you're adding, then it's just the number, just like in example 2. It was an addition of 5, so the common difference is 5. In example 3, we were subtracting 5, so that means that the common difference is -5 now. So this is how you identify if you have an arithmetic sequence or not. Just look at the pattern. If it's addition or subtraction, then it is arithmetic. If it's something else, then it is not arithmetic. So now, let's go more into detail and talk about the explicit formula for a second. Here, we talked about the explicit formula for geometric sequence on our previous video. But now, this is how the explicit formula looks like for arithmetic sequence. So even though both of them are called explicit formulas, they behave and they look pretty different from each other. This is how the explicit formula looks like for a arithmetic sequence. an equals to a1 plus n minus 1 in a big parenthesis multiplied by d, which is the difference. So now, if we want to find the explicit formula for an arithmetic sequence, all we need to know is just these three items. We need to know the first term, we need to know the term that we're looking for, and we need to know the common difference. So now, we will use, well, let's write down the explicit formula. So, because I'm going to be scrolling down. So this is how the explicit formula is going to look like. It's always going to look the same when we talk about arithmetic sequence. The only thing that's going to change from formula to formula is just the different values that we get from each sequence. So let's see. If someone's asking you to find the explicit formula for an arithmetic sequence, then you need to start thinking about this formula. an equals a1 plus n minus 1 multiplied by d. And all we need to find out is just these three items. What's the first term, which we know that's a1? What's the term, which we know it's n? And what's the common difference, which we're going to label as d. So let's see. Let's find explicit formulas for the following sequences. Okay, so let's concentrate on the first example here. Again, all we need to know is just what is the first term, which we can call that a, what is n, and what is d. Once we know those three items, we plug it into the formula and we're done. So let's see. The first term, which we call a1, well, it's pretty straightforward, is the first term in the sequence, which is just 7. N, right now we're just looking for the general formula, so we're going to say that n is equals to n. D is a common difference, or the pattern. Well, let's see. Let's look at our sequence here. What are we doing in our sequence to get to the next number? It seems that 7, you need to add 3 to get to 10. Well, let's see. Are you always adding 3? Well, it seems like it. So it seems like the difference, or d, is just 3. Once that we know the value for those three items, we plug it into our formula and we found the explicit formula. So now we know an equals, so let's write that down, an equals a1, which we found it to be 7, plus n, we left it as n, so n minus 1, times d, which we found it to be 3. And this is it. This is the explicit formula for this arithmetic sequence. Now, again, let's try another example. Let me bring our formula down because we're still getting familiar with it. So let's look. Here we have example B. Let's leave C for a second now. We know that this is how our formula is going to look like. Again, all you need to know is what is A1, what is N, and what is D. Once you know those three values, then you're good to go. So let's see. A1 is the easiest of them all. Just look at the first number in your sequence, which is 8. So there it is. N, right now we're just looking for the formula. So N, we're going to leave it as N. And D is a common difference, or what is it that we're either adding or subtracting by? Well, let's pay attention to our sequence here. From 8, it seems like you need to add 5. To get to 13, are you always adding 5? It seems like it. So plus 5, 18 plus 5 gives you that 23. It seems like you're always going to be adding 5. So that is saying that the common difference is nothing more than 5. You got those three values. You got the shape of your formula. So let's just plug in the values now. An stands as an. A1, we found it to be 8. Plus n minus 1 times d, where d we found it to be 5. That's multiplication. And that's it. This is the explicit formula for this arithmetic sequence. Finally, let's just look at C now. Again, all you need to know is just three values. A1, let's be consistent, let's just call it red. A1, N, I don't know what's going on with the pen. Let's try that again. A1, N, and D. You know those three values? Then you can find your explicit formula now. So here, A1 is the easiest of them all, is the first one, so that's just 7. N remains as N, and D is the number that you keep adding or subtracting. If you look at here, you always need to be added by 10 in order to reach to the next number. So that says that difference is 10. Once you know those three values, plug it into your formula. A1, which we found it to be 7, plus N minus 1 times D, where D we found it to be 10. You got those three values, you got a formula. All you need to know is just box your final answer. So now, here's your entrance ticket. Just find the explicit formula for the following arithmetic sequence.